After the Civil War, this fruit became a coded racist symbol used to attack newly freed Black Americans, a stereotype so deliberately manufactured that it took over a century to unravel. This is the surprisingly political history of watermelon. Long before any of that, watermelon began as a wild, bitter fruit in Africa, with archaeological evidence placing its cultivation in the Nile Valley as far back as 2000 BCE. Seeds have been discovered in Egyptian tombs, including that of King Tutankhamun, suggesting ancient Egyptians valued watermelon enough to ensure it accompanied them into the afterlife. In a hot, arid region with unreliable water sources, a fruit that was over 90% water wasn't a treat. It was survival. From Egypt, watermelon cultivation spread gradually across the ancient Mediterranean and Middle East, and eventually into India, China, and beyond through established trade routes. Chinese texts reference watermelon cultivation as early as the 10th century, and by the medieval period, it had become a staple crop across multiple continents, prized specifically in hot climates where its water content made it invaluable during long journeys and dry seasons. Watermelon arrived in the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade, brought over by enslaved Africans who carried agricultural knowledge along with the seeds themselves. By the 1600s, watermelon cultivation had taken root across the American South, and it became widely grown by enslaved communities, who found in it not just food, but one of the few crops they could sometimes cultivate and sell independently on their own small garden plots. This is where the fruit's history takes a genuinely dark turn. After the Civil War ended in 1865, formerly enslaved Black Americans began growing, eating, and selling watermelon as a symbol of their newfound, hard-won economic independence. It represented something powerful: freedom, self-sufficiency, and the ability to profit from their own labor for the first time in their lives. White Southern society responded with deliberate, calculated backlash. Threatened by growing Black economic independence, white supremacist media throughout the late 1800s began weaponizing watermelon imagery specifically to demean and mock Black Americans, portraying them in cartoons, postcards, and advertisements as childish, lazy, and obsessed with the fruit. This wasn't organic stereotype. Historians have documented it as a deliberate propaganda campaign. This racist imagery proliferated aggressively throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, appearing on everything from postcards to sheet music to product packaging across America. The stereotype was so widely and deliberately distributed that it became deeply embedded in American popular culture for generations, actively working to undermine and mock the very economic independence that watermelon had originally come to represent. The damage proved remarkably long-lasting. Well into the 20th century, this manufactured stereotype remained so culturally embedded that Black Americans in many communities reportedly avoided eating watermelon in public, particularly around white audiences, specifically to avoid reinforcing a racist caricature that had nothing to do with the fruit's actual history and everything to do with post-Civil War racial backlash. Beyond America's racial history, watermelon carried a completely different cultural weight elsewhere in the world. In Japan, extraordinarily expensive cube-shaped watermelons, grown inside rigid glass boxes that force the fruit into a perfect cube as it matures, emerged in the 1980s as luxury gifts, sometimes selling for hundreds of dollars each, valued purely for their novelty and precision rather than taste, which is often notably inferior to normally shaped fruit. Modern agricultural science has also transformed watermelon dramatically from its ancient form. Genetic research confirms that ancient and medieval watermelons were nothing like the sweet, red fruit eaten today. Some historical depictions and genetic evidence suggest earlier varieties had pale, less sweet flesh. Centuries of selective breeding gradually produced the intensely sweet, deep red fruit now considered standard, an almost entirely different food from what ancient Egyptians actually buried in their tombs. From sacred provisions buried in Egyptian tombs, to a genuine symbol of Black economic freedom after the Civil War, to a calculated racist caricature designed specifically to suppress that freedom, to a luxury cube-shaped novelty in modern Japan, watermelon's history reaches far beyond anything its sweet, simple reputation suggests. A fruit that once represented survival and later represented liberation was deliberately turned into a weapon of mockery. The next time you eat a slice, remember, this fruit's history is far more political than most people ever realize.